Alright guys, in today's video we have a lot of PlayStation news and information to go over and talk about, so I'm going to dive right into it. Make sure you hit the like button to help the video out and show it your support, and hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. The first thing we're talking about is a new patent that was apparently filed by Sony that seems to hint at maybe some future plans for backwards compatibility beyond PlayStation 4 games on the PlayStation 5. So trophies are part of PlayStation games nowadays, with more than 10,000 games supporting the familiar feature, but not all PS3 games had them. As spotted by Reset Era, Sony submitted a patent at the end of November that looked into using a process of emulation to unlock trophies on older titles that originally didn't have the feature. The patent describes how an emulation process could be triggered by a client device and would be used to detect whether requirements had been met to unlock one or more trophies. If all of the requirements have been met, the process would then assign those trophies to the player. The patent is specifically aimed at previously released or sold video games. Using current methods, developers of titles that didn't have trophies would have to modify their games to implement them. For many of the older titles, this is no longer possible, nor is it worth the time and money to do this. However, the new patent would remove the need for modifying the games. And so the reason why people are paying attention to this and focusing on it is because the timing of it, I think, more than anything. We do need to acknowledge that this is a patent that was filed a long time ago by Sony, I think even way back in 2012 or 2013, and it's just kind of resurfacing once again. And we have to pay attention to that because I don't want anybody to get ahead of themselves and assume that this is clear indication that Sony's going to be doing something, because nothing may come of it. Patents are filed all the time and nothing happens. But the timing aspect is because there is a report. Now, I'm a little bit late to this. It was actually published on Monday, I believe, but we may have to pay attention to this because it may be something that Sony's planning on doing, and that is shutting down the PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, and PlayStation Portable digital stores. And this has caused quite a lot of concern, I think, from certain groups of gamers in certain areas of the internet. And so this report came from The Gamer, and they're indicating that this is something Sony does plan to do. They claim to have a source that is giving them this information, and apparently it's going to be announced sometime next week. So we will have to wait to see if that happens, because we do have to understand, I've seen a lot of people talking about this, we do have to understand that we haven't heard anything from Sony. This may not be true, but it does seem very specific. So apparently they plan to close the stores on these 3 legacy platforms, and they're going to be having it completely wrapped up by August 27th. But it seems that PS3 and PSP will be going offline on July 2nd, to whereas the PlayStation Vita will be closing on August 27th. Again, the reason why there seems to be some veracity to this, I don't know if we can say veracity, but people are believing it because of how specific it is. They're giving dates, so the chances of this just being something that's made up seems very unlikely. But again, we have to wait to hear if Sony's going to be doing this or not. And this is causing a big problem for a lot of people because of game preservation. A lot of people are saying that this is a bad move by Sony when it comes to preserving older titles, and I do 100% agree with that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this affects me, because it doesn't. That's just the reality. I think, there's a lot of people who will say things, but it doesn't actually mean anything. Like, I think it's really easy for somebody to say that this is really bad news, but in reality, it's not going to affect them at all. I'm not one of these people. I can't sit here and make it sound like this is going to have some massive dramatic effect on me. Personally, I have not interacted with any of these storefronts in many, many, many years, nor did I plan to. But I do understand the problem here, which is game preservation. And there's no doubt that Sony seems to not care as much as, say, Xbox when it comes to this. And I do think that that is a problem. I do think that that's something Sony should try to care about more. They should try to make a bigger effort for sure in bringing their legacy games forward somehow, some way. And that's why I opened this video talking about this patent, because it does indicate that Sony is working on something, or they're at least looking into it. It's just, we have absolutely no idea what their plans may be. And, you know, this kind of does fall down on Sony's communication. And I think that this is another area where they just need to improve, where, you know, some people do care about this. May not be everybody, and it may not be the most relevant thing. And I understand that there will probably be a lot of comments of people saying, I don't care about older games. Who cares? Let's move forward. And honestly, I'm in agreement with that. Again, personally, I'm all about new games and moving forward. But at the same time, like, there is something to be said for preserving these older experiences, for people to go back to and just have that option, right? Like, it's part of PlayStation's legacy. And I think it's just something that Sony should care about to some extent. So there is a possibility here that Sony's going to announce the closure of these stores, but they do have an alternative solution. I don't want to say it's a likely possibility, because this is all stuff that's up in the air. And again, Sony's communication, they've been very quiet, very hush-hush, playing everything close to the chest. But that could be what we're seeing right now. These things kind of line up, and Sony may have an answer. So, or solution, I should say. So we're going to have to wait to see what comes of this, if anything does come of it. Again, look out for an announcement next week. Obviously, if Sony does officially announce this, I'll relay it to you guys and let you know, hey, this is official. But moving on from that, I do want to highlight one other thing that maybe isn't necessarily good news, but I think it does highlight something kind of important. And so apparently PlayStation 4 owners are worried that their games won't work if a clock battery fails. So it says here that concerns about PlayStation's approach to game preservation have been ripe following a report that suggested the manufacturer plans to disable the storefronts on some of its legacy consoles, including PS3. While we're still waiting for an official announcement of that, and Sony will need to communicate something fairly soon if the rumors are indeed true, further speculation suggesting that PS4 hardware will no longer be able to play games should an internal clock battery die is ramping up. This is what people are talking about. And it says, as often is the case, the story appears to have started on social media, although it has been picked up by major publications since. The gist is as follows. PS4 includes an internal clock battery that assigns times to trophy unlocks, preventing users from being able to alter the date or time they earned particular trophies. Over time, as with all hardware, this battery will die, and while it can easily be replaced, it requires a handshake with Sony's servers when reset to authenticate it. Without that connection to the PlayStation Network, you won't be able to play your games. The worry for some PS4 owners then is that there could feasibly come a time in the distant future where your battery dies and Sony has disabled all of its servers, thus rendering your library of physical software obsolete. However, the likelihood of this happening within the next 10 years is extremely low, and even beyond that, PlayStation could eventually release a firmware update which may solve the issue. So I just wanted to mention this because I think it just kind of highlights just like how how much this stuff accelerates. Like, it's like a snowball effect where people are starting to worry about things where it's like, realistically speaking, I don't think this is anything to worry about. I don't think this is going to affect anybody. I don't think that anybody's really going to lose all of their digital PlayStation 4 titles. However, I understand the general concern, as I say, and one of the reasons why I wanted to highlight this is because I've been an advocate for physical media for a long time. I understand the convenience of digital, and I also do buy digital media and content as well. But more often than not, if I have the option and I have the means, I will opt for physical media for this reason. When you have a physical disc, if you buy a game and you have the physical disc, it's yours forever, and you don't ever have to worry about it going away unless you lose it or you break it. Right? Now, when it comes to the hardware in general, that in the long term can be a problem, and in some cases there may be no way around that. That's why when you look at the PlayStation 3 and the idea that you're going to buy a bunch of these physical games, or you have a physical games collection, even if Sony does shut down the store servers and you can no longer buy games from the store, you'll still have that physical collection. Your only problem at that point is possible issue with hardware, kind of failing you, but I'm sure that there's even workarounds for that in some cases. But I think that people are getting a little bit out of hand with some of the things they're saying. I think that we need to understand that Sony needs to, first of all, do a better job at just communicating this stuff rather than just letting these rumors constantly get out of hand. It would be nice if Sony would just come out and acknowledge this and say, yes, this is something we plan on doing, or no, there's no truth to this rumor or this report. But I think we also need to understand that game preservation is what we need to be focusing on. And if you're somebody who just doesn't care, then that's fine. Then pretty much none of this affects you. And frankly, like, that's kind of where I stand. I know that not everybody's going to agree with that, but I bought a PlayStation 5 with the intention of playing new games. I do think it's important, as I said earlier, for these companies to try their best, to do everything they can to try to bring these legacy titles forward for people who do want them, or just to have them there, because people just sometimes like to go back. There's like a heritage. There's something here that is meaningful and does deserve to be preserved. And so I totally am behind that, and I understand that. But at the same time, it's just difficult for me to really act as if this is a big deal to me, because again, like, I'm all about playing new games and moving forward. And there are hundreds, probably thousands of games that I've played within my lifetime so far that I think back on like very fondly, but I have absolutely no intention of going back and playing them. That's just how I am personally. Doesn't mean I would never go back and play an older game. And I will say that if that day were to ever, come where it's like, hey, I do want to go back and play this older game, and then I find out I can't, and it's like ridiculous to even try to attempt to do it. And also, it is worth noting that, this is the whole pirating thing, and, people kind of finding their own solutions. And then you have companies like Nintendo and Sony sometimes cracking down on these individuals, which I think is messed up, because, these are people who were basically just trying to do the work to preserve these games and make it possible to play these games in the future that these companies are just not willing to do. And so I think that it's like, look, if you're not going to do it, right, just let the people who care enough to do it on their own, let them do it. I'm not advocating pirating, obviously, but in some cases, maybe it is and can be justified. But there you go. This is pretty much the big news that has kind of come out and surfaced over the past couple of days. Sony has been very, very quiet for some reason. They're just kind of laying low right now, and I think everybody's just kind of waiting to see like what their next move is going to be, really. They did the whole Evo announcement. They announced Jade Raymond's new studio, and that stuff's great, but other than that, like, they really haven't been doing anything. So we're just gonna kind of have to wait to see what happens and how all of these reports end up playing out. But yeah, when it comes to the whole PlayStation 4 battery clock thing, I'm just gonna be honest, I don't think you need to worry about that. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments below and let me know what you think about this. How much would this affect you if it were to turn out to be true? Are you worried about your PlayStation 4's internal clock battery? And what do you think about this patent? Do you think that if Sony were to make this announcement and it were to be true, that they would offer a alternative solution, and that's why they feel comfortable doing something like this? Let me know down in the comments below. Again, leave the video a like, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.